Hello, friends and family. Thanks for listening. Well, I have some words, some thoughts to share regarding Algernon Sidney. And for those of you who don't know, Algernon Sidney was highly regarded by our founding fathers. I have here Thomas Jefferson to Mason Locke Weems, the 13th December 1804. And let's see what he says. You ask my opinion on the subject of publishing the works of Algernon Sidney. The world has so long and so generally sounded the praises of his discourses on government that it seems superfluous and even presumptuous for an individual to add his feeble breath to the gale. Well, that was written in 1804 when apparently, and Jefferson gives us the clue here, the world has so long and so generally sounded the praises of discourses. Perhaps Jefferson here will forgive me for adding my feeble breath to the gale, but perhaps it is most needed today as well. We, generally speaking today, have not so long and so generally sounded the praises of discourses. And something that is important for us to consider is that if we revere the founding fathers and praise them for their wisdom, then perhaps if we do not know what discourses is and what is contained within it from Algernon Sidney, then perhaps we should do ourselves a service and discover its contents and what it sets out to do. In fact, Jefferson goes on to say, the discourses are in truth a rich treasure of republican principles, supported by copious and cogent arguments, and adorned with the finest flowers of science. It is probably the best elementary book of the principles of government, as founded in natural right, which has ever been published in any language. And it is much to be desired in such a government as ours that it should be put into the hands of our youth as soon as their minds are sufficiently matured for that branch of study. Okay. Well, a book such as that, worthy of such praise, well, perhaps now my breath is feeble and cannot express how valuable this book is. And I have here chapter 2, and I'll just read to you guys what I most recently read from Discourses. And something which I have noticed taught by the founding fathers all the time. And it says here, the whole people by whom the magistracy has been at first created, executed their power in those things which comprehended sovereignty in the highest degree, and brought everyone to acknowledge it. So Sidney speaking of the human history in general, and also by discoursing on the Roman history, noted that the people, and especially the best amongst the people, have been the ones who, as he says, comprehended sovereignty in the highest degree and brought everyone to acknowledge it. In history, the greatest rulers have acknowledged that their station proceeds from the will of those whom they serve, that is, the people. And this principle is so widely defended that even, well, I don't have it pulled up here. Actually, I do. Well, John Adams, during the time of the American Revolution, he would use these principles in defending the actions of the patriots of the Tea Party. And John Adams would quote Sidney saying, neither are subjects bound to stay till the prince has entirely finished the chains which he is preparing for them, and has put it out of their power to oppose. 'Tis sufficient that all the advances which he makes are manifestly tending to their oppression, that he is marching boldly on to the ruin of the state. And applying this quote to, of course, the king and the ministry, which were oppressing the colonies with the Tea Act and other acts like that. And he would go on to say that, the best, especially the committee of correspondences, is that what it is? Yes, the committees of correspondence. That the committees of correspondence are manifestations of what we just read here. That the people, as Madison would say, have the power within their own hands to withstand tyrannical advances. And this is the sort of teaching that got Algernon Sidney in such trouble with King Charles II. In fact, this is why we are recording this on December 7th. What was it, 342 years ago, that Sidney was martyred on the scaffold for his supposed crimes. And Franklin here says what he supposed crimes were. On the 7th of this month, 1683, was the Honorable Algernon Sidney, Esquire, beheaded, charged with a pretended plot, but whose chief crime was the writing of an excellent book entitled Discourses on Government, a man of admirable parts and great integrity. Referring to the fact that though Sidney had every chance and opportunity he could during his trial, if it could be called that, did not forsake the testimony or his teachings in the book. In fact, on the day of his death, I have his words right here, Sidney's word. Let's see here. I was never more at peace. Glory and thanks be unto God forever, who has filled me with comforts and so upholds me, that having, as I hope, through Christ, vanquished sin, he doth preserve me from the fears of death. The Chief Justice, having performed this trick, is said to have bragged unto the king that no man in his place had ever rendered unto any king of England such services as he had done. God only knows what will be the issue of the like practice in these our days. Perhaps he will in mercy speedily visit his afflicted people. I die in the faith that he will do it, though I know not the time or ways. I am so much more confident that he will do it, that his cause and his people is more concerned now than it was in former times. I believe that the people of God in England have in these late years generally grown faint. Some, through fear, have deflected from the integrity of their principles. Some have been too deeply plunged in worldly cares, and so as they might enjoy their trades and wealth, have less regarded the treasure that is laid up in heaven. But I think there are very many who have kept their garments unspotted, and hope that God will deliver them and the nation for their sakes. God will not suffer this land, where the gospel hath of late flourished more than any part of the world, to become as lave of the world. He will not suffer it to be made a land of graven images. He will stir up witnesses of the truth, and in his own time spirit his people to stand up for his cause and deliver them. And these words, you can see, are the words that so deeply inspired our founding fathers. I think it was Jefferson who said that the discourses concerning government was the textbook for the revolution. And in these our days, I think we can find parallels with what he's saying in that passage. I believe that the people of God in America have in these late years generally grown faint. Some through fear have deflected from the integrity of principles. Some have been too deeply plunged in worldly cares, and so as they might enjoy their trades and wealth, have less regarded the treasure that is laid up in heaven. But perhaps part of the reason why we have grown so faint is because, well, we do not know of what great treasures are laid up in heaven. Maybe we do not know, or we have been caused to forget the teachings of the great men such as Algernon Sidney. But I think there are many, very many, who have kept their garments unspotted and hope that God will deliver them and the nation for their sakes. God will not suffer this land, where the gospel hath of late flourished more than any part of the world, to become as lave of the world. He will not suffer it to be made a land of graven images. And he will stir up witnesses of the truth, and in his own time spirit his people to stand up for his cause and deliver them. And for this reason are we commemorating the good old cause, so to speak, the cause of liberty, the cause for which Algernon Sidney gave his life in defending true principles of government. And that word government so often has it been abused, and for this reason it ought to be reread discourses in our day. One more thing. And I have to paraphrase this because oftentimes Sidney speaks sarcastically. But nevertheless, this is what he's saying. Let's see here. By the same light, we may see that those who endeavored to perpetuate the liberty of Rome, or lost their lives in the defense of it, were the best or the most wisest of men, and that they were the worst who did overthrow it. If the sons of Brutus and their companions had been as fortunate as Julius Caesar, they might as well have deserved an apotheosis. And so, this is enough to show that the strength, virtue, glory, wealth, power, and happiness of Rome proceeding from liberty did rise, grow, and perish with it. And so I will close with these words. I lived in this belief, and these are Sidney's words. I lived in this belief and am now about to die in it. I know my Redeemer lives, and as he hath in a great measure upheld me in the day of my calamity, hope that he will still uphold me by his Spirit in this last moment, and, giving me grace to glorify him in my death, receive me into the glory prepared for those that fear him, when my body shall be dissolved. Amen.